Hello and welcome to the Special Report, your news and views program about geek gaming culture on the internet. Coming up in the show today, G2A responds to Gearbox's statement with accusations of their business practices being, quote, defamatory statements made by both Gearbox and TotalBiscuit, and a gamer is shot by somebody who had been swatted after a hoax call gets shot by rubber bullets, and now the person who was responsible for the swatting is facing up to 20 years in prison. We're going to be talking a lot about those stories. My name is JD Shadow, and the Special Report will start right about now. It seemed that right when Gearbox said that they were going to partner with G2A, the controversial game key reseller who has been accused of several things, including but not limited to selling keys that were purchased from fraudulent or stolen credit cards, and a very convoluted G2A Shield program in which it's supposed to protect people from fraud, but it is in a way hard to really get to cancel that particular charge of about $5 a month in order to be able to partake in that privilege. The second that Gearbox decided they were going to partner with them for the Bulletstorm Full Clip game, they were going to turn some heads, and they turned the head of one particular major name in TotalBiscuit, who has said that he was not going to cover any more Gearbox games as long as they partnered with G2A. That caused Gearbox to suddenly say, wait a minute, why are you doing this? What is going on? What is so bad? And after he provided them with several pieces of evidence about their controversial business practices, decided to list a set of demands in order to continue their partnership, to which G2A decided to really not respond to those demands until this past Monday, in which they decided that they wanted to call the accusations that TotalBiscuit and Gearbox had made upon them, quote, defamatory. In a rather lengthy statement called G2A.com and Gearbox Cooperation Official Statement, it is kind of lengthy, but we'll try to get through it et al. It says, quote, this last week brought forth a lot of confusion and caused a lot of inaccurate information to appear on the internet about G2A.com. Although this saddens us, at the same time, we are also glad to have the opportunity to thoroughly explain many of the inaccuracies and misunderstandings tied to G2A.com. It all began with a few negative reactions from some YouTubers, and in particular from John TotalBiscuit Bain, to an announcement that G2A.com is working together with Gearbox Publishing. Our partner, Gearbox Publishing, unfortunately decided to publicly publish a letter with a list of ultimatums without consulting us about the truth of the allegations made by John Bain. This is an excellent example that rash actions without full knowledge of the facts can be harmful to both the developer and the marketplace, especially since all the requests made of G2A.com and the ultimatum have in fact long been part of our marketplace. Number 1, G2A Shield. We agree that every buyer on the marketplace should be protected, and that it exactly how it is on G2A.com. We firmly attest that G2A.com protects and secures both our sellers and buyers far better than most functioning marketplaces. In the very rare cases in which a purchase key does not work properly, each user has the right to issue a complaint and either receive different key or a refund. The main purpose and function of G2A Shield is to provide buyers with immense convenience and comfort, as well as additional features such as 10% cash back, which actually ensures that the Shield subscription cost and more is refunded to each person that buys games more than once every few months. In order to best illustrate this, we will describe exactly how buyer protection works in practice on G2A.com. Just like on any other marketplace, there are rare cases in which a purchased item does not meet expectations. Therefore, let's assume that a key bought on G2A.com from a seller does not work. If the buyer does not have a Shield subscription, the buyer reports the problem to the seller. If the seller sees that the problem resulted because of the seller's error or fault, then the seller either refunds the buyer's money or provides a new key, and the matter is solved instantly. If the seller does not agree to the buyer's complaint, the buyer writes a message to the G2A Resolution Center. The message receives a case number, and our employees, G2A.com's customer support team is fluent in 9 languages, 6 of which are available 24/7, and the average wait time is barely a few minutes. Begin to investigate. Our customer support then contacts the seller to give them a chance to clarify any doubts, and then our customer support team does everything they can to bring about a satisfactory resolution for both parties. The buyer typically receives a resolution in a matter of hours, in contrast to many other marketplaces where users sometimes must wait a few weeks to receive an answer, or never receive an answer at all. If the buyer does have a Shield subscription, the buyer opens and connects with a live chat, which is available 24/7. The buyer does not have to contact the seller, but simply needs to subscribe the problem to G2A.com's customer support team. The buyer would most likely receive a refund during the chat, which lasts a few minutes, and G2A.com takes upon itself to contact the seller and resolve the case on that end. G2A Shield is very well priced given the benefits it offers. This, of course, does not mean we do not realize the service still requires a lot of improvement. We are consistently working on Shield, and we will debut many new solutions over the coming months. 2. Transparency and no hidden fees. G2A.com has over 13 million clients precisely because it offers attractive terms for both buyers and sellers. We would not have been able to build such a successful marketplace by introducing hidden fees. All fees and rates are clearly and explicitly described in corresponding tables. In addition to the price, VAT is added based on the buyer's country, and if applicable, a fee depending on the buyer's chosen payment method. Both of these fees are dependent of G2A.com, and we clearly inform the buyer about them before any purchase is made. Not one of our marketplace is unwillingly charged extra fees. This, of course, does not mean that we pat ourselves on the back for a job well done and call it a day. We are consistently working on bettering the marketplace and regularly making improvements. In fact, some improvements are currently in the final stages and will soon go live. 3. Developers and their access to our key database. It is of the utmost importance to us that only legally acquired keys appear on G2A.com. Our marketplace only loses due to fraud, as G2A.com refunds buyers out of our own pockets for keys that stop working, even though we have no legal obligation to do so. We even issue refunds for keys that stop working a year and a half later, regardless if the buyer had a G2A Shield subscription or not. Let us be clear here. We care about the satisfaction of every single customer. Some developers and a few influential YouTubers with John Bain at the forefront would like to spread an image of G2A.com as a place which exists from being an intermediary in selling illegally acquired keys. This depiction is far removed from reality. The reality is that the keys on G2A.com come from legitimate sources. Our marketplace is a leader in security and boasts one of the lowest fraud rates in the industry. G2A.com employs over 100 people whose job is to ensure the legality of keys, transaction security, and compliance with the most stringent anti-fraud regulations. For some developers, however, the sole problem is that their games are sold on G2A.com, which is why they accuse us of baseless and unproven allegations. Before we explain this more thoroughly, we want to establish 2 basic facts. We fundamentally value and respect the rights to a free market operating within the law. The law does not prohibit the sale of digital goods by those who have acquired them legally. If someone does not agree with the above points, then we will unfortunately never reach an understanding. If you do agree, then we ask you that you please read further. Let us imagine a situation in which a developer sells a large number of keys to servers which offer bundles. The developer's game, along with 4 other titles, end up in a bundle which costs €2. A user buys the bundle, and instead of assigning all 5 games to the user's account, the user resells them on G2A.com, selling a price for €1 per game. The developer does not lose anything on the sale, and they have already sold the key once and received money for it. The user, on the other hand, gains €3. Simple math, the user spent €2 and made 5. The problem is that some developers do not want to accept that people resell their games. The developers would like to control the market and all of the sales channels within it, imposing higher prices and prohibiting the resale of unused games. G2A.com does not agree with this. We respect the buyer's rights, buyers who often unfortunately believe that the rules set forth by developers follow the law. This is why G2A.com would not give developers with whom we have not signed an agreement unlimited access to and the ability to modify our databases. G2A.com has to protect every honest seller, and by giving such access to all developers, we would allow for a situation in which a developer could delete every key on our marketplace regardless of its origin. Such an action would be damaging to the industry, to gamers, and illegal. What is the solution to this situation? G2A.com currently cooperates with all interested developers to ensure only legally acquired keys are sold, without any contracts and, more importantly, without any fees. All a developer must do is to provide evidence that the keys that they want to block have been illegally acquired. This evidence can be, for example, a report from a financial institution. Our cooperation operation is not limited to just the immediate deletion or blocking of keys. We will, without hesitation and of course without charge, provide all information about fraudulent sellers to appropriate law enforcement agencies. This situation is different only for those developers who are in the direct program. Since we have signed contracts with these developers, we have complete confidence that they will not do anything which would contradict the two above mentioned facts. Therefore, they are the only ones who are able to check our database independently and without limitation. Our direct program, which as an aside already counts over 100 developers, is the answer to all the complaints developers have about not just our marketplace, but marketplaces in general. We say this is not only based on the arguments laid out above, but also on the fact that G2A.com is the only marketplace in the world which allows developers to charge a commission on the sale of their games by third parties. An analogy of this in the physical market would be if Samsung received money every time an individual on eBay resold a Samsung TV, which had been previously bought in a different store. Additionally, participation in G2A Direct is at no cost to the developer. This program has been crafted in such a way that there is no reason why any developer could in any way suffer losses by participating in it. And then finally, the summary. G2A.com's goal is to provide the best possible conditions for both buyers and sellers, while providing the best prices for legal games. We do everything in our power to uphold the best possible relationships with developers and ensure the highest standards in the fight against dishonest sellers. At the same time, we respect our critics and believe that they have the good of the industry at heart. Unfortunately, sometimes we do not understand how G2A.com works, and as such, this misunderstanding causes them to mislead the public about our company. The best proof of this are the 4 ultimatums formulated in part by John Bain, which it turns out that were completely unnecessary, as all of the issues raised have long been a part of the G2A.com marketplace. Most of the allegations levied against us are based on both a lack of knowledge and a lack of desire to learn the other side of the story. The best example of this is quoting false and defamatory statements while ignoring the facts. This is why we constantly emphasize that we are open to meetings and discussions with anyone who has doubts about how our marketplace works. Best regards, Machi Cooch and the G2A.com team. I probably butchered that name, but whatever. Now, let's first get the obvious statement out of the way. Everybody should know this about me if they've watched my channel for some time now. I don't mind the used game market. I don't mind that at all. I don't agree with the sentiment that the used game market is destroying the game industry. Most of the people who are saying that are just mad that GameStop exists. They are just mad that that particular store that has some questionable ethics on their end exists. And in order to get rid of them, you have to get rid of basically the used game market, so you corner about 90% of that. So in order for somebody to legitimately say, hey, you are not understanding how the used game market is hurting the video game industry, you have to figure out why and how reselling the game on Amazon or reselling the game on eBay or something along those lines is hurting the video game industry, because at that point the developer is already got the money from the game. It's already got the profits from that game, from that sale. So how do you figure that GameStop is the one that is the evil part of this whole used game situation, and then because of that, the entire used game market is guilty by association? I do not understand that. And these Steam key resellers, or those game key resellers like G2A and like Kingston and like some of those other gray market sellers, although they're kind of dodgy, as long as they are legitimate keys that you have bought, or you had, say, 1 out of 4 that you can use, and then you say, hey, I want to sell the others to another person, or I want to sell it on this marketplace, as long as you got them in a legal sense, that should be all well and good. And that is the only thing I could see me saying, okay, that's okay, albeit you can question the morality or the ethics about it, but it's not illegal as long as you have obtained that key legally. What is stopping you from doing that? You should not be stopping from doing that. However, with G2A, there's a little bit of a difference here in that G2A has some shady business practices that the other gray market key resellers have not been reported as to having. At least Kingsland, when the Far Cry 4 thing happened, they at least spoke up and said, wait a minute, you might want to be careful. We can't really regulate this. There's no way for us to regulate this completely. You might want to be careful in that sense. Be careful. At least they're saying something about it, even though I think maybe they could have done more about that. With G2A, they seem to have profit off the backs of fraudulent key reselling. Out of those keys that have been bought by fraudulent credit cards or stolen credit card numbers, and then when the chargeback happens, G2A doesn't do a damn thing about it. And it's because of that that this has caused the problem that it has. But there's something more to this. G2A is profiting off of that, and it's because of that that G2A is not doing anything. And then when you take into account how utterly ridiculous it is to try to cancel your Shield membership, which should not be costing anything, a lot of online digital distribution marketplaces, if not all of them, offer that service free of charge. You don't have to pay anything. And in order to cancel that whole thing, you have to go through a series of dialogues, which the Keep My G2A Shield membership going is highlighted in big green buttons, while the option to cancel is in that little link that is not going to just jump out of you like a sore thumb. Compiled with the whole fact that you can only cancel within the last 2 days of the initial period. After that, you're free to cancel whenever you wish, which to me sounds a little bit dicey. It seems a little bit murky, and you have to give them the last 4 digits of your credit card number, which seems a little bit more dodgy, and they take 20 minutes to give you an email to confirm, and then you have to confirm again once you're clicking that confirmation email, which you might never get because it takes 20 minutes to get there anyway. And by the time you're getting through all of that, your initial 2-day thing might be over, and you would have to pay another $1 or whatever it is. I might said $5 at first, but it's really hard to understand how much it actually costs because it doesn't really tell you right there. So with that having been said, it's hard to side against Gearbox here and side against TotalBiscuit here because of how utterly shady these guys are. And this statement does not help anything. For one, they're saying a lot of developers, over 100 developers, have came out and supported G2A. Well, list some of those developers. Who are these developers that they're talking about? They don't list them. They have not listed them at all. And that is problematic because if you give them some form of proof, a particular name or a few names, especially names that people might know, then perhaps you can ask them, hey, if that is what they're doing for you, if that is how they're operating for you, then maybe they can add some legitimacy. And on paper, everything they said seems to be on par. They seem to be in a state where, okay, if you're not understanding of how their history is like, which there are a lot of different sites and curators that will tell you completely different from what the picture that G2A.com is trying to paint here. They will tell you a completely different story. Tiny Bill will definitely tell you a completely different story. And for that matter, G2A is basically come out saying, hey, we're not going to change our ways. So they're probably telling a very different story from what they told last week or the week before that. So it's really hard to judge where they're coming from there. Basically, give G2A Shield to people free of charge. Every single place that deals with online orders does that, period. There's no way to justify why you have to charge for something you should be giving people for free, unless of course you're doing exactly what everybody accuses you of doing. There is no evidence to suspect that any developer is benefiting in any sort of way from what G2A is doing, and this is why they're in the position that they're currently in, where they have to use broken English. And if you were listening to me read off everything they said in exact words, I did not take anything out of context. That way you know exactly what they said. You would understand that this is more than just somebody reselling a key that they might have had extra, or something that they don't really want or something along those lines. I am fine with you reselling a key if you don't want it. I think that's particularly pro-consumer, even though you can argue with the morality of stuff all day long. That's not going to change my viewpoint as to whether or not it should be legal. However, if you are getting those keys from malicious ways like a stolen credit card, then of course you're going to not like the end outcome in that sense. Now, is there a chance that G2A can change their ways and they can say, hey, wait a minute, maybe we can change this, or maybe they were misunderstood, or maybe they're trying to make things right? It's possible, and you can always be able to open that door for maybe some redemption in that regard. But the bottom line there is that at the end of the day, G2A has shown no interest in changing the ways anytime soon. And unless they make some big headway and they really show that developers, particular developers, list them by name, are on board, some big name developers that people recognize, that people trust, are on board, and if you really show that you have the interest in both the developer and consumer on board with it, and you have shown that you can craft your words in a way that sounds pro-consumer, then the end result is going to remain the same. You're going to lose your sponsorships, you're going to lose just about everything you work for in order to get to where you are, assuming that you didn't get that way by means of malicious practices to begin with. And that is the main problem here. And G2A has shown no interest in either proving that they haven't gotten there by means of malicious practices, or that they give a damn about malicious practices on their site. I don't particularly feel sorry for G2A. I don't particularly feel sorry for what they're going through right now. They deserve what they get, and this is coming from someone who thinks that as long as it's obtained through a legal way, that you should be allowed to resell a Steam key or a PC game key. And that's saying something when you take into account that aspect. And finally, a man from Coventry, England is in big trouble. Robert McDowell, 21, is alleged to have called a terrorism hotline in the U.S. state of Maryland, posing as a man called Tyring Dobbs. And what did he do this for, you might ask? Is swatting. Yep, here we go again. It seems that he was claiming to be armed with several bags of explosives and a gun, and he would kill 3 hostages unless $15,000 were delivered in a red bag to his address, meaning that he was claiming to be someone else that he actually wasn't, but he was trying to get him into trouble. So the police took this thing extremely seriously, and they shot the 20-year-old after they raided Mrs. Dobbs' home. This is a real person, mind you, and shot him in the eyes and in the chest with rubber bullets. Thank God they were not real guns. They broke bones in his face and bruised his lungs, and you can see the images on the screen before you. A show afterwards with a heavily swollen, bruised, and cut face. Now, fortunately, the police did realize what their error was a little bit too little too late in the terms of Mr. Dobbs' well-being physically. However, they did trace a call back to Mr. McDade, who is now facing 20 years of prison for charges including conspiracy to produce false information and hoax. Now, the biggest thing about this is that McDade, who is 21 years of age, seems to be just an accomplice. He was acting at the request of an American gamer named Zachary Lee, who contacted the Britain via an internet telephone service, according to TerrorAlert.com, back in February 2015, and asked for his help in swatting Mr. Dobbs, which McDade said, quote, "I'll do it when I'm up." Now, Lee has been charged with the same offenses, and the prosecutor in Maryland, who has been nominated by Donald Trump to be Deputy Attorney General at the U.S. Department for Justice, Ron Rosenstein, said, quote, "We are working with officials in the UK to ensure that Robert McDade is held accountable for his alleged actions because the alleged criminal activity represents a grave threat to public safety." Mr. Dobbs has, though, criticized police for not checking up on whether or not this was a real threat before acting upon it, with them reportedly totally ignoring any calls from his father or his cousin telling that there were no hostages in that house. Speaking to WJLA, the ABC affiliate in Washington, D.C., he said, quote, "How did y'all not trace this call back? How did y'all not figure out where it came from? I want justice. I want them to pay for my medical damages, and I want whoever shot me in my face to have to do some time." Okay, so before we go any further about this particular case, can we please recognize that this swatting thing, whoever started this trend needs to be held accountable. This is the worst possible thing you could do to anybody, especially those who are within the realms of YouTube creation or Twitch streaming or anything of the sort, regardless of whether or not you like their content or agree with every single thing they ever say. I remember watching a video of Monday Matt when he said he got swatted himself, and he had the audio of what was going on when he got swatted. He was recorded video, then SWAT team came to his house, they knocked really hard, and then he was scared for his life. They thought he was going to get shot, they thought he was going to die at that point in time. He was scared out of his wits, and that has to be the feeling with just about anybody who hears not only a hard as hell knock at your door, but to suddenly open the door and see those AK-47s in your face telling you you need to get down on the ground right now because somebody just decided, hey, I don't like your content, I'm going to fake that you are a crook in the highest regard. Who made that a thing? Why is that a thing? That needs to stop now, because this sort of thing, now we have people who are shooting people in the face without thinking twice before they even understand, wait a minute, we got the wrong guy here. There's really nothing here with rubber bullets, and they may have to pay punitive damages if there is justice here. The people who were instigating the swatting are obviously going to have to answer for their crime, but the police themselves, they shouldn't have knee-jerk reacted to this. I agree with Mr. Dodds here. He should get justice in this sense. They should have checked it out, and this is something that is standard or should be standard with any particular SWAT team that is getting these calls because of this whole thing that's been going on. This guy was completely innocent. There was no hostages there. There were phantom hostages. There was nothing there. Just somebody playing this game, and then all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. Get down on the ground now! We're gonna shoot your head off. What do you think that does to a person? Obviously, you know what you're doing. You're trying to scare a person into not wanting to do what they want to do anymore, which is either create content for YouTube or create Twitch streams. And the media is doing well enough on its own power with this whole YouTube boycott thing that is only an old media versus new media thing and nothing else. Them making up stuff and making mountains out of molehills. That is exactly what that is. They're doing well enough on their own. They don't need your help to do that. And I hope that the people who did the swatting get the full extent of the law, and it seems like they're going to do that. This is a pretty serious offense to misuse that kind of resource, to misuse that kind of force, and to waste their time on that, to waste their time when they could be doing so much more things. They could be doing something that actually helps the general public. To waste your time on something like that, that's like dialing 911 just to say, hey, how you doing? They have better things to do. They have better things on their mind they can be doing other than acting upon your own dislikes. And if you are even thinking about doing that, you're gonna be deserving of whatever you get from that. You have a lot coming to you that you deserve to get. This is not a funny thing. This is not a fun thing at all. You are going to get punished for it, and we hope you do get punished, and we will help you get punished for it. But to these policemen, maybe you should give some form of compensation. Maybe you can have some redemption here. You screwed up. These policemen screwed up, and because of that, this guy got injured, at least physically, and he may be scarred emotionally and mentally and psychologically for a long time to come, assuming he ever fully recovers from those scars that we can only imagine that he has, and we can only hope to God that we would never actually be experiencing what he went through. And this thing with swatting people or even doxing people, which is putting someone's personal information out there when it that wasn't publicly available elsewhere. That kind of stuff is abhorrent. It is disgusting. It should never happen. If someone doesn't want their public information being put out there on the internet, you don't put it out there on the internet, period, regardless of the reason. If you don't like somebody's content, you just don't watch. If you really, really don't like that person, you don't have to watch them. And that goes for me too. I really would love to get more subscribers, and I really love the people who do subscribe and like the content. But if you really don't like the content that I put out there, or anybody else who puts content out there, you don't have to watch them. It's no big deal. There are many more people that will like it, and I do challenge people to challenge their beliefs, to challenge their opinions by going to somebody who they might not necessarily agree with, who might have a different viewpoint, who might have a different perspective, and I welcome that. I welcome all that stuff. But if they're going to do stuff like this, if they're going to SWAT somebody like that, which is the worst thing you could probably do, you're wasting people's time, you're wasting the resources of policemen who could do much better things to do with their time and resources. You're probably permanently scarring a person in more ways than one. And here's the thing, is it worth it? Was it worth it for Zachary Lee? Was it worth it for McDade? Because now they're facing 20 years of prison, and they are serious about it. They are serious. They want to nail these guys. Let's hope that they continue to be as serious, and let's hope that this is a sign of things to come, that people are going to take this whole idea of swatting somebody they don't like on YouTube or on Twitch much more seriously than they currently do. Let's hope that this is a sign of things to come, because this needs to be discouraged. Really needs to be discouraged. Because if this happens and somebody actually uses a real bullet, is that going to be enough for some people to say enough is enough? This is a step in the right direction. Somebody is going to be paying big time. Let's hope this is not the last time they act like this. Swatting needs to stop. That's going to do it for this edition of a special report. Thanks again for watching, and as I said, you are free to agree or disagree. You are free to share your opinions. I want to hear what you think about the subject at hand. Please comment down below. Subscribe for more Geek Gaming Culture. If you like the video, please share it. Please like the video, especially if you link your YouTube account to your Twitter account. It will tweet that you liked this video, and you can share it automatically with other people so people can watch it as well. The road to 1K subscribers. Let's try to get that going. We are 50 away, maybe even less than that by the time you see this video. Hopefully that ends up happening. I would really love to have that happen much sooner than later. Let's get those subs. Let's do it. It's been a long time coming, and I know I haven't been perfect in not only releasing new videos, but also some of the content that I have done. I try to get better as I go along, but hopefully we get to 1K subscribers. I've been waiting for it for a long time. Let's get it. So until next time, my name is JD Shadow, and that just happened.